Jai Jai Ram Om.
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om.
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Sit here now, this side. Don't block them. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Hari Om to everybody. Pranam, pranam, pranam.
Hari Om, pranam Swamiji.
Pranam, pranam. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. We are in the 18th chapter. It is pretty long. And he prompted Arjuna to ask this question about Paratyaga and Sannyasa. By making him to ask that question, he elaborately discussed about the various facets of our action, day-to-day action. In order that we get some idea in our practical worldly life as to which are to be avoided and which are to be held, which we cannot compromise, that he clearly points out in the earlier chapters also he has given. For example, yajna, dana and tapas should not be avoided at all. By the word yajna, what is meant? All creative, productive work. But because it is going to directly or indirectly help others and gives us the satisfaction of having done. Anything that is creative or productive, which is beneficial for the society and nature, we should not avoid. Any activity by which, we are reaching out to the lesser privileged ones. We can interpret, we don't know how far it is right. God is parading before us certain segments like mentally, physically handicapped, visually impaired, deaf and dumb, spine injured, orphanages, destitute home, so many such things. So we try to help them. This should not be avoided. And every now and then we have to watch whether the body has been sufficiently replenished. Yesterday we were talking, till 1960 or end of 1960, this thought was not there even in the companies, professionals. They introduced then leave travel facility. In a year, one should go for 10 or 15 days leave to recoup. So yajna, dana, tapas. Yajna is giving back to the nature. Dana is giving back to the society. Tapas is giving back to the body. Whatever we have taken, we are replenishing it. This should not be stopped. There may be umpteen number of acts, deplorable acts, which are that he has categorized. Sattvic, what does action constitute of? The different aspects. So what is more important is a fulfilled life, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga means, we interpret it as a fulfilled life. Where we feel, yes, our life has been worth living. We no longer take it as a burden. We no longer try in terms of appropriating the results to ourselves only. We are moving, unknowingly or knowingly moving from me to we. Later on in the chapter it also says that will help us to move from we to him. As we keep on reading this is how we get the clues from these 18, because there are 70 plus slokas. To get a direction as to, because he starts elaborately discussing about the sattvic aspect, rajasic aspect, tamasic aspects of actions, and also the division of labor. Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, we take it as a division of labor. Because to produce, we need intelligence. We need planning. Lord says, I am behind everything. And there should be the initiative from our side to plunge into activities, not merely conceptualizing, but that concept has to be made a reality. And then the result of which, if it has to sustain that project, for example, there should be somebody to take it, na? And finally, there may be many types of work for which you need manual labor. So all these people are valid. Nobody is inferior or superior. And the Lord assures that all these different types of people will reach me through their own activities, not that they have to upgrade themselves. That's a wonderful point. So we don't consider, after reading this, we don't consider anybody less eligible, less intelligent. All are valid, all are relevant. Nobody is irrelevant, nobody is unimportant, nobody is insignificant. Though there is a division of labor. We were sharing the other day, when we were working, the manager, when he comes at 8 o'clock to the office, when he goes to the cabin, the person who cleans everything, he will be there cleaning his desk, dusting everything, keeping it in the tray where should it come, chair, everything, As soon as the manager enters, the first he greets him, good morning. We used to observe that. Nobody is unimportant. Nobody is irrelevant. So here that idea has been brought out by Lord, that if all these 5 divisions of labor, they can reach me through their own actions, not that they have to move to somebody's action. Yesterday somebody was asking about universal test of this renunciation of fruit. Because in this chapter, first one, up to 1 or 20, the Lord elaborately discusses about the renunciation of fruit of action, phalatyaga. So this particular portion we will read. The Lord has made one thing absolutely clear while answering this question. What is this question? Whether phalatyaga is all right or renunciation of action is needed. Renunciation of the fruit of action is to be done, or renunciation of the very action. Renunciation of the action is called sannyas. Renunciation of the fruit of action is called tyagam. So Arjuna puts this question. Which one? So here the Lord answers, renunciation of the fruit is the universal test. It should be applied everywhere. It can be applied everywhere. There is no contradiction between renunciation of the fruit of all the actions and the renunciation of rajasic and tamasic actions. Rajasic and tamasic actions are also to be eschewed, just like all fruits of action. Ultimately, a stage should come when we are prompted from within. He has provided the wherewithal, He has provided the field for us, and it's a wonderful thing that we act and then we stop. Sattvic actions. As far as rajasic and tamasic actions are to go, each it has to be eschewed. So he elaborately discusses what is tamasic action, what is rajasic action. Self-centered. We can, in order to go deep into it, we can say anything that is self-centered, anything that is detrimental to the interest of others, anything that disturbs the peace of others, those are to be eschewed. The nature of some action is such that they automatically fall off when the test of renunciation of the fruit is applied. When it is said that renunciation of the fruit should be associated with the performance of action, it invariably implies that some actions will have to be given up. When we act in conjunction with renunciation of the fruit of action, it naturally involves abjuration of certain actions. Let us think over this in depth. When we say that whatever actions we do, we should renounce their fruit, actions prompted by desire for the fruit, actions prompted by selfish motives cease immediately. Why should I do it if I don't stand to gain? No. Such actions as well as actions which are forbidden, being immoral and unrighteous, are ruled out when it is said that the fruit of action is to be renounced. The fruit of action is to be renounced, that's the universal test. We look at it in a different way. Fruit of action is renounced because we fully understand that there are so many contributory factors for attaining, for having these fruits of action. None of us can arrogate that it was I who did it. Original concept would have come from your brain. But when it is on the process of translating it from the conceptual level to a actual level, actuality, so many contributory factors have helped us. unknowingly or knowingly. We remember the incident which we have already shared. I think probably even yesterday also, today morning also we shared. When we were working, one day, at that time our monthly turnover was 2 lakhs. So the manager said, can we do 5 lakhs? On that day, suppose we think it is simply not possible. But suddenly we said, yes, provided we get these spare parts, whatever we order, it should come to us from the head office. If you can ensure that, we will hit the target. So then, and we had hardly 10 days. So there was a teamwork. And finally, on the 31st night, 8 o'clock, we were able to hit the target. You know what the manager said on that day to the head office? He was supremely happy when he came on the first day morning to find that we have already reached the target. He immediately telephones to the head office and says, my boys have done something which I cannot even conceive. So they should be taken in a bus. 2 buses will be arranged. They will be sent to Bangalore, put them in the first-class hotel, give them all facilities, let them enjoy, take them to the factory also. Now, just imagine, the manager can simply arrogate, I have touched. Because ultimately to the head office, manager stands there, that's all. The concept has come from him. But he was a highly value-based person. He never arrogated. He knows the result was there because of the team spirit, because of head office, because of the supplier, because of on those days, everything has to be manually done, manually typed. Unlike today. So there is a teamwork on a continuous basis, sustaining basis, not 1 or 2 days. So we learn. None of us thought about the fruits of action. Because the manager says, we do it. Because he is a noble person, inspiring person. He casually said, we took it seriously. And when we did it, he never said, I have done. So we are trying to apply that in our life, to understand this 18th chapter. We are liberating ourselves from the clutches of me and mine. The title of the chapter is Moksha Sannyas. So we interpret it that liberating ourselves from the finite, the limited, I and mine. That is possible only when we try to accommodate, when we try to accept the truth that it is a combined effort at the Vyavaharik level. At the spiritual level, God facilitates. He gave us the prompting. He facilitated the field. He facilitated, correspondingly, he prompted many of his creation to help us. And finally, ultimately, he made it a reality. Now, what is my role? My role is to act as he prompts from within. Otherwise, there will be grumblings and complaints. Just imagine, in spite of your doing so much work, suppose you expect something, at least a word of thanks, and if it is not forthcoming, all these sincere efforts you put in, it doesn't give you that sense of fullness, because your mind space is occupied by grumblings, complaints, discontentment. So we look at it to understand this. So let us not be guided purely by the academic side. Every now and then we try to integrate it with our own life. That is not the only meaning. Everybody will get in their own way their interpretation. But we take it that the 18th chapter, elaborate, because all of us have to work. Right from morning till night, we are involved in various types of activities. We cannot stop it. Even if I don't want to do it, my nature will force me to do it. In one of the slogas he says, even if you don't want to fight, you will be forced to fight, because that is your nature. So action is something which we cannot avoid. Now, what are we to do? But we can definitely forego, we can definitely act without expecting anything in return. And that will not be counterproductive. Our own experience says it will never be counterproductive. Any creative act. A barren land is cultivated as a plantation. Just imagine. A series of economic activities, unknowingly, it is initiated. Because when you employ 10 people, when you give them wages, their purchasing capacity increases. So a tea shop man or a small shop man will get business. The milkman will get more business. The provision man will get more business. Like that you start imagining. That is how this whole development has taken place. A barren land is converted into a plantation or agriculture. A barren land is converted into a factory. So there are a lot of economic activity. You may not know it. You may be thinking that I will start a factory so that I will eke out the maximum. Okay. God gives you that idea first. Then one day you sit and see that a stage comes. One of our ashram devotees, he is running a very big factory, about 3,000 employees. Every time when we meet him, he will only say this. He is also 80 plus now. I am worried about my 3,000 employees. When there were some reverses at the governmental level, he was terribly upset. Only not about the business. What will happen to my 3,000 employees? Because of his care and concern, because 3,000 employees mean their families and the dependents and so many people based upon their living. All these come and sit. So he is praying. He said, Papa should reel out. So every time we remember this, So actions are okay. But what is the universal test? We are not merely looking at the profitability. And if naturally there should be profitability, then only it can sustain. But the profitability is not appropriated to one individual or a set of people. If we view it with this perspective, the first 20, 25, 30, 40 slogas, it gives a meaning related to our workaday life. So universal test. Let us think in depth. Some say that the Gita enjoins us to act with renunciation of the fruit. It does not suggest which action should be done. When it is said that one should act and renounce the fruit of action, it becomes clear that which action should be done and which should not be done. Actions intended to harm others. Actions full of falsehood. Actions like stealing can never be done if their fruit is to be renounced. Actions like stealing can never be done. The sun illuminates all things, but does darkness gets illuminated? No. That is what happens to selfish or forbidden actions. All the actions should be subjected to this test. When we intend to do something, we should see whether it is possible for us to do it without any attachment and expectation of returns. Renunciation of the fruit is the only unfailing test for actions. This will, the more we think about it, this will not come initially. Initially, it might apparently look, an idea strikes to us, God gives this, but we don't recognize it is God who is giving. Intuitively, we feel one idea, it flashes, and then we try to make a project report. Where from we are getting this project report? Think about it. Various factors that if somebody has already done, you collect it. And then you start, everybody appreciate, there are some itching problems will be there, you surmount the thing. After 10 or 15 or 20 years, when you sit back, these things will become clearer and clearer to us. Though initially started as my venture, when I sit and see so many are working in the office, in the field, in the factory, then suddenly I think, God, you chose me to do this. From that moment onwards, you will not have any attachment for the fruit of action. Fruit of action will come by itself. Because your whole concern is on a macro level, not on the micro level. Me and mine, no. So renunciation of the fruit is the only unfailing test for action. When this test is applied, actions with desire or selfish motives show themselves up as fit to be rejected. They must be renounced, then pure and sattvic actions remain. They should be done with detachment, selflessness, and humility. Humility means, never be arrogant. We become conscious of the truth that but for the contributory factors which are coming from outside, this would not have become a reality. If we start applying this universal test in all our actions, anything and everything, from the minute test to the... Suppose somebody gives me a certificate that you are a good cook. Instead of arrogating, I will think that cooking technology, you made me to practice by trial and error. You brought so many ingredients. You made me facilities to commit errors and get corrected. And finally, you also made me to see the skill in everything. 10 people are coming, 15 people are coming, 20 people are coming. What should be the quantity? What should be the proportion of each and every dish? I have seen many such people who are balanced always, The other day we were sharing, Adiga. On the 16th day of Puja Swamiji's Samadhi, when we had no idea, no clue as to how many will come. So when we called him, he asked casually, how many people do you expect? We said, we have no idea, but roughly we can say 6,000 to 8,000 people. Ultimately, it exceeded 10,000 people. At 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, when everything was over, when he came to our room, we have to give him dakshina, we told him, it must have strained you a lot. He did not. He said, this is normal in any function. Not a word. Because every time when he sees the crowd, he does something by which everybody is given the same quantity. And he is happy and he doesn't utter a word about that. Because it has become his own nature. Well balanced. Nor did he demand anything. We were not satisfied. We have to ask half a dozen people normally what do they charge. And then we put something extra. He did not open the cover also. So in like that, So humility. Renunciation of selfish action is also an action, but it should also be subjected to the universal test. Renunciation of selfish action should not require any efforts. Thus we have seen Rajasic and Tamasic action to be abjured. Because they are not pure. So they smear the mind of the doer with impurities. But on deeper observation one finds that sattvic actions too are flawed. When somebody says, you have done a good job, immediately I take up the ownership of the whole thing. Finished. I have already said that all the virtues have not yet been fully developed. Mankind is learning from experience and making progress. In the Middle Ages, it was thought, when we read these words, Vinobaji doesn't say that then we are all under the process of refining ourselves. So after 15 years or after 50 years or after a century, probably a reinterpretation will take place. That is why at no time Lord Krishna said that you should do this. In the 63rd chapter, sloka or something, he says, this is what I feel. Now think over it, do as you like. So this also gives us, the 18th chapter gives us this wonderful democratic right, not to work within the frame of a dictums or dogmas. It gives us freedom. Yathechasi tatha guru. And Papa says, unless you don't just take because it is Ramdas' words, no. Unless there is an inner alignment within you, don't do it. That means you have to be reflective, contemplative, keep on thinking about it, keep on tallying with the experiences God has given you, and seek His intervention, and we get the right guidance at the right time. So it is on learning, what do you call it? Online.
Swamiji, here Vinobaji says that there is a difference between renouncing rajasic actions and tamasic actions and sattvic actions. I am not able to understand.
Instead of going through the academic side, suppose we try to understand that which is detrimental to the interest of anybody else, that which is detrimental to my own spiritual interest. We can categorize, instead of somebody categorizing it, what is Rajasic and Tamasic. He has given us so many, in the shlokas, so many explanations. But ultimately zeros to what? Anything that is self-centered, anything that is injurious to the interest of others, they come under the category which are to be avoided. Sattvic actions not only make us happy, but also makes others happy. It will be productive, it will be constructive, it will lead to peace and serenity. There may be so many explanations, but let us try to define for ourselves. We will read the one portion which you wanted us. Why should Rajasic and Tamasic actions be abjured? Because they are not pure. So they smear the mind of the doer with the impurities. But on deeper observation, one finds that sattvic actions too are flawed. In fact, every action has some or other defect in it. The Swadharma of farming comes to mind as a pure and sattvic occupation. But even in such work, which is the nature of yajna, some violence is involved. As shared a couple of days back, when we do the farming, we plow the land, make it cultivable, and we sow or transplant the seedling, which we have raised from the seeds, the rice seedling, paddy. And after a week or after 10 days or 15 days or 1 month, next job is, whenever we see a weed, it will be weeded out. On one hand, you are trying to encourage a seedling to become productive, but on the other hand, you are removing that which has come by itself. So that is why he said, even in Sattvic act, we cannot say 100% non-injury is there, but which we cannot avoid. Ploughing and other operation destroy a number of living beings. When we open the door in the morning, the sun's rays enter the house and kill a number of germs. What we call purification turns out to be a killing operation. I have already said all the virtues have not yet been fully developed. We have been able to have just a fleeting glimpses of qualities like wisdom, devotion, service and non-violence. Fleeting glimpse. When we were working with the Jain, every day, evening when we travel, after 6 o'clock when the headlight is on the vehicle, naturally the insects will be moving towards the light. Many of them get stuck with the radiator. He will immediately stop, jump out, save as many as possible, again start. So when I was asking him, you know very well that traveling at this time is instrumental in causing death to many insects. How can you call it as non-violent? He said, I am not justifying it, but we can save as much as possible, because we have to reach a place before such and such a time. So there are some constraints in our movement. So what do we do? That doesn't mean we can just go. Still in that process we can save as much as we can. So much, so good. So Sattvic acts, we need not say that it is free from flaws, but it can be, the damage can be limited to the extent possible. So like that we look back to our own life, then we will have our own interpretation, which will be practical. Otherwise it will be theoretical, I have already said that all the virtues have not yet been fully developed. Mankind is learning from experience and making progress. In the Middle Age, it was thought that agriculture involved violence, so it should be avoided by the non-violent people. They should prefer trade and commerce instead. To grow grains is sinful, but to sell them is not so. Is it not strange? To avoid action in this way does no good. Restricting the sphere of action in this way will ultimately prove suicidal. The more a man thinks of escaping from action, the more will he get entangled in them. If you have to trade in grains, is it not necessary for someone else to grow them? If so, are you not an accomplice in the violence involved in farming? If growing cotton is a sin, it should be equally sinful to sell it. Not to produce cotton on the ground of it being an impure work is a sign of warped thinking. An attitude that goes on rejecting actions of all types and different pretexts is not a sign of compassion. On the contrary, it shows lack of true compassion. We should understand that when the leaves are plucked, the tree does not wither away. It rather gets fresh foliage. In the contraction of the sphere of activities, there is contraction of the self. So when we expand our activities, the expansive mood, the expansiveness, if there is a word, that expansive attitude is a gift of Him. God stands for expansion. Because in him everything is included. That is why everyone acts. Everyone has to act. So the question then arises, if all the activities are flawed, then why should not all of them be renounced? This question has already been answered. Renunciation of all the action is indeed a very attractive and fascinating idea, but how to renounce innumerable action? Is the way of giving up Rajasic and Tamasic actions applicable to Sattvic actions too? How to avoid Sattvic actions that are flawed or impure? The curious result of saying, let Indra along with Takshak be offered as sacrifice in the yajna, is that Indra being immortal does not die, and Takshak to escape the death and become stronger. Sattvic actions have a good deal of merit and a little flaw in them. When we try to sacrifice them because of that flaw, the merit in them does not die because of its inherent strength, but the flaws survive and grow behind the shield of the merit. The flaws which otherwise could have been removed get strengthened because of such indiscreet sacrifice. If we drive away the cat because it kills the rats, we shall have to suffer violence by the rats. If snakes are killed because they are violent, a lot of pests will multiply and destroy the crops, resulting in the starvation of thousands of people. When we look at it in an expansive mood, there is a biological control. In coffee plantation with which we were associated prior to coming to ashram, a pest called short-hole borer suddenly gets spread like this viral. It will go eat the fruit and keep the outer cover like that. Nobody will know that it has eaten the fruit. But ultimately at the end of the year when you take, you don't get any crop. Being a votary of non-violence, we don't use any pesticides. Excepting natural pesticides like garlic, neem, like that so many things have been developed. But it so happened, we found after some time, the red ants, they started crowding. Then later on we came to know that is the one which drives the other one out. We did not lose much crops. Where everybody, even the most poisonous one, polydol, one more thing was there, that was sprayed, which is injurious. Ultimately, when it is going to be consumed by the human being, some part of it will definitely percolate into the seed. So it is not good. So then later on we came to know the nature itself brings. Just like at the time of flowering, when we get rains, the buds get opened on the 9th day night. Immediately after that, it sends out a fragrance. Bees immediately rush in there. And because the bees go there, indirectly they do the pollination without their knowing. And the fruition takes place. And in the next 9.5 months, the berry becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally we get the crop. We are not doing anything. So the nature has its own formula of balancing. That's what we are. If we are committed to this ahimsa concept, to a very great extent we may be able to hold on. Because this biological control is there. Just now he said, cat, rat. So many things are there. Everyone has got their own role to play. But we will not do anything. In front of us, if a cat catcher tries to catch us over a rat, we will try to save the rat. We will not sit because we have not reached a stage where we submit everything to his will. We identify ourselves immediately with the rat. We are trapped. What we will do? We will try to somehow escape. We will not hold on to tall philosophy because what applies to me, I should be able to apply to. That is why in the 12th chapter he says, Adveshta sarvabhutanam maitra karuna evaja. Karuna evaja, compassion. At our level, all these things are to be practiced. So the more a man thinks of escaping from action, the more will he get entangled in them. If we have to trade in grains, is it not necessary for someone else to grow? The question then arises, if all the activities are flawed, why should not all of them be renounced? Actions bereft of wise discrimination can result in something adverse and unexpected. Discrimination, no? Bereft of wise discrimination. Action we cannot avoid, but we should keep on discriminating. Outwardly renounce the desires of passion, they will enter my heart. Oh Lord, what am I to do then? Even if one tries to make a little sacrifice outwardly, the subtle urge for indulgence remains in the mind and grows there in strength, rendering the sacrifice meaningless. If a little bit of renunciation is going to lead us to build palatial houses, it makes no sense. It would have been better to live in a hut. It is better to continue to be dressed in the coat and the turban than to wear a loincloth and amass wealth and wallow in worldly pleasures. That is why the Lord has prescribed an altogether different way for renunciation of sattvic action. They are to be done, but their fruit should be severed from them. While some actions themselves are to be renounced, fruit of some other action is to be severed from them. There is a story about a man who thought that his house was filthy, inauspicious, and therefore left and went to another village. He found filth in that village too, therefore went to the forest. There, as he sat under a mango tree, the birds dropping fell on his head. Disgusted, he cursed the forest, went and stood in a river. There he found a big fish eating up the small ones, and that heightened his disgust. Convinced that the whole of creation was abominable, and there was no way out except through death, he came out of the water and kindled a fire to end the life. A gentleman who was passing by inquired, "Brother, why do you want to end your life?" The man replied, "Because the world is an abominable place. It stinks." The gentleman said, "But imagine how it would sting when your flesh begins to burn. What would happen when your whole body gets burned? We live nearby. How would we bear it? Where could we go?" The man was bewildered and exclaimed, "One cannot live in this world, nor can one die in this world." What is one to do then? The moral is that if you go on condemning everything as abominable and try to escape from it, you cannot simply carry on. If you try to avoid a small flawed act, an act with a bigger flaw will become inescapable. The nature of karma is such that it cannot be gotten off by outward renunciation only. If a man tries to fight the karma that has come to his lot in the natural course, if he tries to swim against the current, he is bound to get exhausted and in the end be swept off by the current. His interest lies in acting in tune with the current of Swadharma. Then the coatings of the mind will peel off gradually and the mind will go on getting increasingly purified. Activities will wither away of themselves even though actions will continue to be done. Here he brings out a beautiful idea, activities and action. Activities will wither away of themselves even though actions will continue. There is a difference between karma and kriya. Let us take an example to explain this. Suppose there is a great commotion at a place and it is to be stopped. A policeman goes there and shouts at the top of his voice. To make the people silent, he has to do the intense action of shouting. Someone else may just stand up, raise his finger, and that will be sufficient to quieten the people. Another person may just go there and his very presence will stop the commotion. In the first case, activity is intense. In the second case, it is gentle. And in the third case, it is subtle. But action is the same, that of quietening the people. As the mind gets purified, intensity of activity will go on diminishing. Activity will go on becoming gentler and subtler, and will altogether cease in the end. Action and activity are two different things. Even grammatically, these two terms are different from each other. This must be clearly understood. A man may express his anger either by shouting or by keeping silent. He may thus resort to different activities for the sake of one and the same action. A jnani does no activity, but his action is infinite. His very existence induces innumerable people to take on the right path. Even if he is just sitting still, he does infinite action. As activity goes on becoming subtler and subtler, action goes on growing. Thus one can infer that when the mind is completely purified, activity will cease to altogether and action will become infinite. Activity will progressively become gentler and subtler till its complete cessation in the end, and then infinite action will take place by itself. Action cannot be got rid of by rejecting it superficially. It is possible only gradually through selfless, desireless work. There is a poem by the poet Browning where a man asks the Pope, "Why do you bedeck yourself with robes, etc.? Why do you have all this paraphernalia? Why do you keep a serene face? Why this pretense?" The Pope answers, "I do all this because it is possible that as I go on play acting in this way, faith may touch me one day, even without my realizing it." One should therefore go on doing desireless activity. It will finally culminate in the state of no activity. In short, Rajasic and Tamasic actions are to be renounced without exception. Sattvic actions that come to us in the natural course should be done, even if they have some flaws in them. Let them be defective. If you try to avoid their defects, other defects will overtake you. If your nose is crooked, let it be so. If you attempt to cut it to make it beautiful, it will look more frightful and ugly. Sattvic actions may be defective, but as they come to us in the natural course, they should be done. Only their fruit should be renounced. This is the cream of this 18th chapter. We should know that. Because man has to work. So what he needs is a proper guidance from within and without as to how to refine that action. We cannot avoid action, but we can be a little choosy and discriminative in avoiding tamasic and rajasic, that which is injurious to me as well as to others. Apparently it may not be injurious to me, but it rebounds. Nature will not leave anybody. Anybody goes against the norms. As Ranganathanji said, if you violate nature, you get violated by nature. So we hold on to sattvic actions. At the same time ensure that we don't appropriate the fruit of action. We are just prompted to do that particular act from within. God has prompted us, God has facilitated us, God has given us the field. In that way, at the end of the chapter, it becomes very, very clear to us the agency of action. In clear-cut ways, the Lord says, tomorrow we will go through the chapter, sloga-wise meaning, just with this background. Because he keeps on telling that. Finally, he said, you should also leave the agency of action. You must not take up action that does not come to you in the natural course. Do only what has come to you in the natural course. Do not go out of the way to take on new tasks which are not naturally yours. Avoid the work which needs a lot of deliberate efforts, even though it appears attractive. Do not be tempted by it. For renunciation of fruit is possible only in the case of the action that come to you in the natural course. If a man begins to run after each and every action, imagining that this is good, that is also good, renunciation of fruit is inconceivable. This will make a mess of one's life. One will try to do such actions for the sake of fruit only, but the fruit will elude him. Life will then always be unsteady, unsettled. The mind will get attached to that action. Even if sattvic action is found tempting, one should keep away from the temptation. If you try to pursue a variety of sattvic actions, rajas and tamas will creep into them. You must therefore restrict yourself to the sattvic actions which come to you as a natural swadharma. Swajadiya dharma. So while deciding about one's swadharma, one is required to take into account what is appropriate to one's nature and tendencies and what are the duties that have fallen to him. You have something in you which makes you what you are. That is why you are different from others. Everybody has something that is distinctly his own. A goat cannot develop itself as a goat if it aspires to be a cow. It is impossible. It can never give up its goatness. To give up the goatness, it will have to give up its body. It will have to die to take a new body and acquire a new dharma. In the present birth, that goatness alone is sacred for it. You must be knowing the story of the bull and the frog. There is a limit beyond which the frog cannot inflate its body. It will die if it tries to become as big as a bull. It is not right to imitate others. That is why it is said that taking up another's dharma is disastrous. So dharma consists of two parts. One changes while the other does not. I am not today what I was yesterday, nor shall I be tomorrow what I am today. I am changing continually. A child's swadharma is to seek all-round development. A young man's swadharma is to use his abundant energy for the service to the society. Swadharma of a mature adult man is to give others the benefit of his knowledge. A part of swadharma thus changes, but the other part remains unchanged. To use the language of the scriptures, we may say that man has varna dharma, duties that follow from being a particular varna, as well as ashrama dharma. Ashrama dharma changes. What does this mean? When we successfully pass the stage of brahmacharya ashram, we enter the next stage, we become a grihastha, then enter vanaprastha ashram, finally become a sannyasi. But varna dharma does not change. I can never go beyond my natural limits. Any attempt to do so will be foolish. You cannot overlook your distinctive attributes and personality. The scheme of varna dharma is based on this idea. The concept of varna dharma is quite appealing. Varna dharma is it absolutely unchangeable? Is belonging to a varna akin to belonging to a species? No. Is it just as a goat will always be a goat, a Brahmin will always be a Brahmin? I concede that it is not so. One should not take a balanced view. One should take a balanced view. When varna dharma is used as the basis for social order, exceptions are inevitable. Gita has acknowledged this. The key point is that one should understand these two types of dharma. Keep away from any other dharma, even if it appears fruitful and alluring. From the elaboration of the idea of renunciation of fruits, the following points emerge. Rajasic and tamasic action should be completely given up. Fruit of the action of renunciation should also be renounced. There must not be any pride or vanity about it. Sattvic action should not itself be renounced, but its fruit should be renounced. Sattvic action, whose fruit is to be renounced, should be done, even if it has some impurities. When sattvic actions are done continuously and their fruit renounced, the mind will get purified. Activity will go on becoming gentler and subtler, will cease completely at the end. Activity will disappear, but action for the sake of Lokasangraha, to bring the people together and show them the path of righteousness, will continue. Only the sattvic action should be done, which comes to us in the natural course. One should keep away from other actions, howsoever good they may appear. One should not be tempted by them. The rest of the things we will go through. So this is the final message Lord Krishna is giving to us. Since actions are inevitable, we have to keep on weighing each and every action. Initially we act and then think. Slowly we will think and then act. So that God is giving us a long rope. He gives us the freedom to be a little choosy, avoidable, and with that we can hold on. So 18th chapter in a nutshell. How do we get out of this? Because even after going through so many austerities, still man is not free from action till his death. So the final formula he gives, unless and until you surrender everything to me, unless you give up the sense of agency and do everything what has been allotted to you, you will not be entering into the gateway to liberation. Moksha Sannyas Yoga. So whether I am a grihastha or a brahmachari or a vanaprastha or a sannyasi, whether I am involved in household work or in professional work or in social work, I have to draw out a methodology suiting to my taste and temperament, my inclination. And I should draw out, I should not do this, I should do this. I should hold on to this. But in whatever we do, we should be able to sacrifice the fruits of action. Because fruits of action is his. He has given me the prompting, he has given me the field, he has given me the wherewithal. Naturally, the end product also must be his. I arrive at this and continue with my activities. That is the one which is going to give me the key for the gateway to liberating myself from the me and mine and becoming one with the cosmic being. From the individual to the cosmic, to the universal. The final chapter is, it is a journey from the individual to the universal, from the limited to the unlimited, from the finite to the infinite. Please think over this. We started the chapter with self-centeredness. My sons and Pandu's sons, he asked. So the clutches, he are in the clutches of me and mine. In the last chapter, he logically, rationally, brings out one by one, enables us to do our discriminative faculty which he has given to us by reflection and contemplation. Avoid certain things, hold on to certain things, renounce all the fruits of action, finally accept that we are only a puppet in his hands, so that we will ever be liberated from the clutches of all that is limiting me, all that is making me contracted. Kindly do some thinking. This is how we get this feeling as we keep on going through this 18th, because it is a lengthy chapter. If it is a small chapter, we can try to make it concise, but it's a long chapter. So when we keep on thinking that, then finally it becomes very clear to us. He spends a lot of time on this action. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. What is to be avoided, what is to be held. Division of labor. So many things he comes. Because actions are to be understood by me. And they bind me. So unless I apply this to action, I will not be freed from the me and mine. But it doesn't mean I am free from action. Actions will go on without this bondage. That is why everybody keeps on telling, it is addressed to the man on the field. 78 slokas are there in the last chapter, out of which you remove, say, 4 or 5, 6 by Sanjaya, and then again another 3 or 4 by Arjuna. So ultimately, between 65 to 70, the Lord alone talks. Kindly think about it. It requires a lot of serious study, lot of manana. It is directly related to our life. The final closing chapter.
Not very clear about this.
Not very clear about
it. Still I am not clear.
Tomorrow we will go through the slokas.
Yes, Swami.
And then you start combining. It will not be clear easily. It is a lengthy one,
I understood one thing, that there should be renunciation of all actions.
No.
No. Am I right?
No, not renunciation of action. Renunciation of the fruit of action.
Fruit of action. Yeah.
We cannot renounce all actions. Till we breathe our last moment, actions will be there. Body level, mental level, intellectual level. But we have been asked to ensure that we don't get bound by that action. How do we do that? By slowly detaching ourselves from the fruit of action, not appropriating the fruit of action. Fruit of action is the one that binds me to everything. It limits me. I get 1 ton of a product, immediately I think of selling it and putting it in the bank, But suppose I start thinking, this 1 ton product has come because of so many, without any fuss, without any publicity, I will try to see that those contributory factors are properly compensated. And as we advance, we will ensure that we will not take anything.
When we get peace out of chanting, that also is given by him. I have not done anything.
Chanting also is, he made me to do.
Yeah, he made me to aim. That we should know that. Knowing is different and realizing is different, Knowing we know because our masters say he is making me to do. Do we feel that he is making me to do? That is the trouble. Now Gita says you renounce your fruit of action, but from the mind also it should go, Outwardly we are renouncing the fruit of action, but from the mind also. That is why reflective and meditative approach is necessary. We had seen people doing it exactly. In their mind there won't be any attachment at all, and they will be happy in distributing it. They are very happy. I don't know whether you have heard about Anandashram Shivam. In Tamil Nadu, there was a great person. He will go in good old days. a dhoti and one upper cloth, that's all. On those days, poverty was very much, especially in villages. So he will go, as soon as he comes, people will join, ask him what is to be done. He will say, get all these provisions. He himself will cook. He will get the necessary utensils. With firewood, he will cook. And all those who are not having meal, they will all be asked to come along with the villagers. And in the whole village, it will be a big feast. And this Anandashram Shivan will serve to everybody. He will not take. For his food, he will go to the next village and seek bhiksha. We have seen so many other people, but for enabling us to understand, God parades us before us. Don't think it is impossible. It's not a theory. Everything they will distribute. Nothing they will keep it for themselves. And they find joy in it. So this is not something, a tall talk. And the joy you get. So God will give them that frame of mind where you toil, but you don't appropriate it for yourself. And what you get is only a joy and joy and joy alone. No? Bliss and bliss and bliss alone. He gives us a taste of the ultimate bliss. There are many. They go organize and then distribute everything. They don't appropriate anything for themselves. This is the final message.
Hari Om Swamiji, this is Neelam.
Tell me.
Swamiji, since this is the last chapter, can we do this verse by verse?
Tomorrow we will do that.
Okay.
Tomorrow, with this background we should go, otherwise it becomes theoretical.
Okay.
We get stuck. But now we have got an idea what for this 18th chapter stands. These are the thoughts now God gives us to us. With this background we will go through one line meaning of all these slokas. Okay. Hari Om. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om. 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 Hari Om. Pranam Swamiji. Pranam to everybody.